I will say this though, Mark, that it's a fair argument to make, and I can't really pose one against it per se, but I would say I would have been curious, not to go down this whole winding road, but like what would have happened if Sam Hinkie wasn't forced out? Because look around the league, Jeremy Grant, TJ McConnell, Dario Saric, a lot of these guys that Sam Hinkie found and got in cheap or got on a cheap deal or got in a second round, whatever the case may be, they become NBA players. They're still in the league. So it makes me wonder what would have happened perhaps if Sam Hinkie would have continued on. He probably would have, honestly, drafted Ben Simmons. That probably still would have happened. Yeah. But would he have aggressively traded up for Markelle Fultz the way he did? I'm not so sure. Yeah, so it's just fair. But it is. I mean, you look back on it, and the only thing that is like the crown jewel, the prize, truly, is Joel Embiid. So well, I'll say it like this though. That's disappointing that that's it. But man, that's a big one, man. I mean, the guy almost won the MVP of the league. So to come away with that, it might still in the long run wind up being worth it.
As long as they can build around him. Yeah, I have thought about that.
He seems unbothered, Mark. I don't know if you saw his tweets today. He seems pretty unbothered by the whole thing.
He's the best. When it comes to Ben Simmons, though, and it comes to the Sam Hinkie thing, I have gone down that windy road today in my head. And what I get to is I don't think under Sam Hinkie they ever give Ben Simmons the $170 million contract. I don't ever think they go to that point. I think they look and go, he hasn't improved enough. And wait, I could get more picks in return for him? All right, fire sale. And so as far as Ben Simmons goes, holding on to Joel Embiid. Maybe.
It's a fair theory because that is true.
Hot takes here. No hot takes. Yeah. That's just what I legit think. So here's the thing that I think really sucks. Ben Simmons is going to go elsewhere, and I think he's going to have more success than he would have here in Philly because when he plays with a chip on his shoulder, he plays very, very different. When he plays scorned, he plays a lot different, and I think the best example of that is when James Harden was here in Philadelphia this past season, and Ben Simmons goes out there and plays a phenomenal game and plays on edge the entire time simply because he had something to prove. Now he's going to have something to prove to the rest of the league that it wasn't his fault in Philly when we all know it was his fault in Philly. But he wants to go out elsewhere and really have that superstar life and that superstar playing ability that he wasn't able to manifest here in Philadelphia. So I think we're going to look bad in the long run here. The Sixers are going to look bad in the long run, and people won't really acknowledge the fact that it just wouldn't happen here in Philadelphia for whatever reason.
No, it's fair. It's a fair thing to bring up. I agree. I do think wherever he goes, whether it's, if he gets his wish, which, well, I mean, I don't know how he's going to get to any of the Lakers or the Clippers. That's just pretty much impossible. Right. If he winds up in Golden State, yeah, I mean, that's great. When you're playing with, 3 possible Hall of Famers, sure, I'm sure that's going to help your career a great deal. Or if you go to Sacramento where the pressure is incredibly low because the bar is very low. If you get that team into the playoffs, you'll be a god. So really, I mean, it will be such a different perspective. And I think that's where it is with Ben Simmons too, Mark, is that our expectations and everything have shifted. If Joel Embiid wasn't here, if Joel Embiid wasn't a runner-up for MVP, if they didn't make all these all-in moves, for Jimmy Butler first, for Tobias Harris, if they didn't if they weren't an all-in championship caliber team, maybe you could afford to have a little bit more patience with Ben Simmons, but you can't. You can't. He either had. Let's say that this didn't happen and he wasn't, forcing a trade or demanding a trade. This offseason, either he would have had to be traded or he would have had to step up because you couldn't go into the season with the same version of Ben Simmons that you had last year. So, especially when you consider Joel Embiid in his prime, MVP, you don't know how long that's going to last. Like, hopefully it lasts a decade. I pray it does, but you need to take advantage of that while it is here. So, yeah, I mean, I have no doubt that wherever Ben Simmons goes, he's going to be really good. And again, if it's a team like Sacramento, to me seems perfect because, or even Minnesota, because if you make the playoffs in the West with either of those teams, you're a god there. And that's it. Like, it's not here. It's a championship or bust. Yeah. In Minnesota or Sacramento, it's like, oh dear Lord, just get us to the postseason.
Yeah. I just want to say this because I want to highlight this every time. I would have welcomed Ben Simmons back with open arms. The report yesterday was the report that just kind of shot this all to hell, as far as I'm concerned. With his camp leaking this, it now becomes a problem for the Sixers in terms of what they can get in return for Ben Simmons, because they know that their hand is essentially forced. Every team around the league knows that the Sixers' hand is forced. So if Tyrese Maxey is going to be a part of this, I don't want him to be, but it looks like he's going to be a part of it. It is a Ben Simmons trade. What do you think the value is right now in moving on from Ben Simmons when other teams around the NBA, around the association, know that the Sixers' hand is kind of forced here?
I will say that I don't know that I buy the Tyrese Maxey thing 100%.
Okay.
Just because
they are working out together. They're part of the same group and all that. Yeah.
Right. And they're both represented by Clutch. But man, that would be such a bad look.
It really is
a bad look by Clutch. If you're forcing, like, Ben Simmons' business is Ben Simmons' business. Don't drag Tyrese Maxey into it. So to me, if that's real, if that report is real, which I don't know whether it is or not, but man, that's a bad look for Clutch. It really is, quite frankly. Rich Paul does a lot of good as far as empowering players and things of that nature. But like, Rich Paul works for Tyrese Maxey. Tyrese Maxey does not work for Rich Paul. Like, that's the way that's supposed to go. So just to start that off, I don't see that as I think that would just be them overstepping their bounds a little bit. All right. We'll see what happens.
But let's hope that's BS.